part two of all that stuff that happened around their holiday party.
Well, one of these days, Josh is just gonna buy us.
I don't cringe at this part because they used to do this stuff in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, that's like
You
40
basically have to
bucks.
sign over your big slip to the
I
parking
know.
garage.
I know, unless your company pays you your parking garage, good luck in that city.
This is just a simple process.
That's what they keep telling me. I'll feel that success any day now. We'll get started this.
That's good. I saw Grady Wilkins for the first time in my life.
Yeah, you said that, yeah. That was a surprise there.
I did. And Tiki Miller, who's somebody who told me was killing a look out the crash was sitting there.
Well, obviously, a little fake news.
He got over it.
He recovered
As
from
Mark
that.
Twain said, reports of my demise were greatly exaggerated.
Obviously, in his case.
That didn't apply to one of the people that was present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get a lot of people there?
Yeah, there was a pretty good number that was mostly left out.
Yeah.
I think Jim Strickland.
Oh, Jim, that's okay. That's somebody you need to work on something, somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up.
I have two friends that are doing low power FM community radio. One of them in Alaska, one of them in Humboldt County.
I just scheduled our climate change show.
Yeah, I just got that.
And I've got a film director who's gonna talk to us about 2001.
Oh, great.
All right, so what's the date on that? What's the date on that again? So it's 2001, so we need to talk this about what's going on. Okay. Oh, by the way, I'm going to give you those slides for the post.
No problem. Yeah, I'm not late.
Yeah, I know.
I'm juggling.
There's so many things in
chainsaws.
flight.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to recreate your presentation, but I can.
I'll just send you all the raw PowerPoint slides. You
Yeah.
somehow
I'll just grab the one that seemed to fit, because normally with the YouTube version, I just have photos. Because the whole idea is not have them distracted by visuals, but have them listen.
Right, well, one thing I'm really great with your particular
Oh, okay,
other things that various ones of our friends and associates run is I'm going to try to start
Yeah,
getting a
maybe,
page
yeah, because I
on
think
our
it's
website
maybe
where I
somewhere.
sort of promote our friends' work.
But I heard what you're.
And if you have
Yeah.
what sort of links
So,
to
yeah,
material
that's,
you like
that's
for that page for me to present Utopia News Network, just let me know.
Yeah,
Did you see that
Yeah.
Alex is not gonna be able to be on our connecting truck?
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah.
Have you heard from Chris? I've been poking him, and as always, he's hard to get a hold of. Well, that's the thing. I always text him. I hesitate to escalate to full on calling him, but I mean, and sometimes. Oh yeah, because treasure-related things I really need to find out if
Is
he's
this
going
Austin?
to do something. And I want him to be able to go to your house too. So we need to give him a call too. Strongly encourage him to queer his schedule for next Sunday. All right.
Yeah.
I know. What are you guys doing? Just gonna be at home not doing anything anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
The other person who is a stakeholder there.
Yeah, I'm not
Great.
proud of the master's program.
Then I assume we're okay.
Exciting
I hope.
courses and
All right, I think we're
today
gonna
for
get
that
started.
and.
All right. Hey everybody, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started here. So, welcome to the monthly EFF Austin meetup. My name is Kevin Welch. I'm the current president of the board here at EFF Austin. I see a lot of new faces tonight, so that is awesome. So for those of you who are new and don't know who we are or what we are about, we are a long-standing digital civil liberties organization based here in Austin, Texas. Been around for over 25 years. We are a closely allied group with the more famous in this space, EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, based out of San Francisco, who are the country's premier digital civil liberties advocacy organization. They frequently are engaged at the national level, advocating on legislative policy, and at the state level, they do a great deal of work in California. we do what we can here in Texas on similar issues.
There's a rumor that they're corporate lobbyists. Is that true?
Man,
Did you read that article?
I did read that one, and I'll share that with me. Wow, that's probably anti-net neutrality people spreading that one around. But anyway, this is generally where I do a few announcements real quick before I introduce our speaker, just about things we have coming up in our community. So we mostly have our slate of talks for the rest of the year mostly lined up. So and we got a number of exciting ones. So I encourage you guys to attend in future months. In August, we're going to have Brandon Wiley of the Operator Foundation talking about why freedom on the internet is going to fail and how we're going to save it. So that will be a fun one. September, we're tentatively looking into doing a partnership with a couple of political candidates running for office here who we feel very solidly about their digital civil liberty policy bona fides. This is still in early stages and not completely confirmed, but we're going to try to be touching base with the Cops Are In Clean campaigns. Early interest expressed by both, so that may be our event in September. Stay tuned. October, we're very excited that we're going to have Ars Technica reporter Cyrus Farivar is going to be our guest, promoting his new book, Habeas Data. Book people will also be here with copies of the book to obtain, and Cyrus will sign them. So that'll be that's a slightly bigger star than who we normally pull in, So that'll be a fun one. And then November, we're partnering with a local LGBTQ hackers group here in Austin. We're going to basically be doing a Security 101 demonstration, also just be doing a bit of a live doxing demonstration, trying to show just how easy it is to obtain data on people online. So that's just going to kind of be a Security 101, it's scary out on the electronic frontier talk. And then finally, also in November, we're going to be doing a partnership with the local Nerd Night group, who some of you may have been to, but they hold monthly meetups where they have 3 speakers talk on various nerdy topics, and we're basically going to be presenting the November edition of Nerd Night. I will be speaking on net neutrality. This gentleman here is going to be speaking on something. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm sure John will give that to me at some point. And still figuring out the 3rd speaker. So don't miss that either. Yeah, I think that's most of what we have coming up. As always, you can check the EFF Austin website for news about our latest goings on. Also on the website, we recently started having David here provide some blog posts. We've been without a dedicated blogger for a while, so we're very happy to start having just non-meetup announcement content on there again. David has already written us some great articles. He wrote us one about how cryptocurrency is fueling the libertarian seasteading movement. And he just posted another one about a recent House resolution in the U.S. House of Representatives, HR, I'm going to forget the exact number, you can check on our website. But, thank you. It's basically yet another bill trying to increase collaboration between the public and private sector on data sharing to prevent terrorism, but we all know what that's usually code for, so David's written a nice write-up about that. So yeah, I encourage you to go check that out. You go to our website. You can also always click donate on our PayPal link if you like the work we do there. That's our plug. Finally, this is usually where I turn things over briefly to the community, the audience, to see if anybody else has anything going on they would like to share that is of relevant interest to the EFF Austin community. Shameless self-promotion is completely allowed. So does anybody know of anything coming up that they think would be of interest to the community?
There's a veto thing.
A veto?
Okay, that's the House bill.
Yes.
It's sounding like he's running for the Senate, correct?
Yes, he's running to replace Ted Cruz.
He's he's having like a congregation, or like, he's not gonna be there, but a bunch of his supporters all over at radio. They're having a get together, so like.
What's the date on that? Do you know?
I'm 19.
Okay, great.
They call it beers for Beethoven.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Beto's, we tend to like him pretty well at EFF Austin. We don't formally endorse people, even people we partner with, but we like the look of him. You might go check out his event, and if you like what you hear, give him some money.
Well, we ought to get to know him pretty well, too. Maybe somebody we can talk to later.
Maybe. also one last I forgot to mention, which is Scoop Sweeney of the Photopia News Network has agreed to start recording audio for our meetups here for his podcast, so we're very happy to have Scoop here. Anybody else have any announcements they'd like to share with everybody? Nope. Okay, then I'm now going to quit rambling and get on to introducing our speaker for the evening. So, we're very delighted to have Hiba Ali with us. Hiba she's a media artist, writer, and musician originating from Chicago. Her digital and sculptural installations and performances focus on the history of objects that are produced from global circuits and their embedded codes, encompassing both the technological and sociological. She conducts workshops around open source technologies, reading groups about technology, and personal and colonial histories. She's worked with Black, immigrant, queer, brown, white, old, and young populations and community organizing, and employs digital technology in ways that empower people. She holds 2 undergraduate degrees from the School of Art Institute of Chicago with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Film, Video, New Media, and Animation, and a Bachelor of Arts in Visual Critical Studies. So, you know, she sounds like she's done some cool stuff. She's currently a Master of Fine Arts candidate at UT Austin here. She has also had her work exhibited and presented in numerous cities, including Chicago, Toronto, New York, Istanbul, Detroit, London, Riga, and Dubai. And so Hiba is going to be talking to us tonight specifically about the unique role that artists face in our new digital ecosystems, navigating these new social and legal realities that we find ourselves in, where literally things like electricity and water are only afforded to those who can purchase patents. And artists have a unique role in this space of patents and copyright that we find ourselves in the digital world. And so he was just going to be leading a conversation, discussion, so some slides, some videos, just facilitating a conversation about where art is in our new digital world and its relationship with the laws we currently find. So I introduce you to Hiba. Take it away,
Hiba. Thanks for that lovely introduction, Kevin.
I'm just reading the nice words you sent me.
So this is the intro slide to the discussion we'll be having for the next hour, hour and a half. And this is a leading question. So if open source leads to open communication, why isn't it free? I repeat, if open source leads to open communication, why isn't it free? This question speaks of internet's infrastructure and organization. The internet is a purchase utility, not a public one. Since you have to buy it, it's not like an electric utility. How can we shape communication technologies in the future, knowing its past and current use? I ask that question because not a lot of people know how the internet and social media came to be. A lot of these conditions we accept and don't question because knowledge regarding the internet and digital technology is specialized. It's tied to a specific industry and it's not general knowledge. So, hello everyone, welcome to my talk. Thanks to EFF for organizing, particularly Kevin, and Cat Factory for hosting, and Plutopia for recording. My name is Hiba Ali. As Kevin said, I'm from Chicago. I've been in Austin, and I've now graduated from my master's degree. Thank you. I've been making work, like Kevin said, and conducted research addressing systems of technology and globalization, particularly satellite technology and the internet, and probing these systems, because if we can understand a system, understand how it's wired, we can see what is missing, or we can also imagine it differently, and change it to be more accessible and more inclusive. So to address this, I make sculptures, videos, host workshops, reading groups, and lectures, like this one. So the kind of rubric for this talk is going to be part artist talk, having a discussion, etc., and part screening. I'm going to be showing my own video work, artists that deal with the entanglement of the internet, things around privacy, things around accessibility, and how their own relationship is to digital technology and regulations. So throughout this Artist Talk Part Screening, we're going to address the history of telecommunications in America and imagine more inclusive uses of it. Historically, digital technologies have not been inclusive of poor people, black people, brown people, queer people, etc. We're always lagging or completely left out of the conversation. So part of this lecture, we're thinking about other possibilities and other ways to empower people who have historically been positioned at the margins, especially in this current political time and space, with net neutrality being dismantled and the consolidation of corporate power. You have less options to pick and more monopolies. I think about what does internet for poor people look like, because like reiterating my point, it's not a public utility, it's a purchase utility. So I think about like how did the first global telecommunications happen? Like when was that? How was that done? What were the investors? There's always many parties involved. What was the first global transmission and how did it happen? Who was involved? Who had the money? Who had the assets? Because this history frames our current time. I also think about how does telecommunications intersect with economics and accessibility? How is the internet accessible? How is it inaccessible? I also think about what does it mean to talk about the internet in 2018? How do you make such closed off and specialized information accessible? How do you make it colloquial? How do you make it conversational? I think about the control of technological systems and how we configure our relationship to them. It's always changing because technology is always evolving, adapting, getting revamped, etc. So we're going to learn more about all these questions and get all these answers, maybe answers, I don't know, we'll see, through this talk and through watching some videos. So I'm going to start off with an image, because then we'll go to the video. But this is an image behind me of a video I made called Satellites, which we'll be seeing shortly. It was on view at Whippersnapper Gallery in Toronto. That exhibition opened up this past year. In this video, I sampled archival footage from the early 90s of the company called SBC Global, which is now part of AT&T. SBC Global at the time was one of the largest satellite companies in America. And the video investigates the first global transmission that the company was involved in called Our World. A bit about satellites and why I'm interested in them. I'm fascinated by satellites because of this technology's ability to create a media reality all around us. It runs in the background and becomes normalized in our everyday lives. So in my practice, I'm interested in questioning what we think of as normal or as given and why. Satellites transmit media to our phones, channels, on television, and signals. They help create a sense of this globalized world. For me, as an artist who grew up in America, it's an important question, the construction of this American media sphere and its particular history. When I started this project called Satellites, I've been doing research within media studies and learning about the history and theory of technology, particularly objects that help us communicate to one another and manage our realities. I was reading a book named Cultures in Orbit by Lisa Parks. Lisa writes about how satellites can connect the world and promise a global village. Lisa says that satellites also cut and divide the planet in ways that extend the hegemony of the post-industrial West. In focusing on such contradictions, Lisa highlights how satellites cross paths with culture, politics, and social struggles. For me, I was drawn towards understanding the parameters of the first global satellite transmission. This transmission was called Our World, as I mentioned earlier. In my work, I think we do need to recognize that this technology helps us communicate and connect with one another, but this should not overshadow political, historic, uneven global relations. So now I'm gonna screen the board. And can everyone see okay?
Okay, cool. We might be able to boost the volume over there if it's not being loud enough.
Okay.
Let me see, I think the volume controls right there.
video on here, so I can just show that too. So,
Okay.
one second. Okay. Bring it over. This is the installation. Sorry, it's like a little bit.
Yeah, I bumped it up quite a bit.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
In 1945, the science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke first explored the idea that satellites could be used for broadcasting. Using Kepler's laws of planetary motion and Newtonian mechanics, Clarke's paper gave the exact conditions for putting a satellite into geostationary orbit. Today, there are hundreds of such satellites orbiting the Earth. They provide audiovisual entertainment and information, broadband data and telecommunications services to an area that is home to 95% of the world's population. So how does the geostationary orbit work?
Satellites beam content to culture and
televised media, which includes pre-recorded,
serialized, and live transmissions.
They disseminate media, communication, and information from one area to the next.
The imaging of satellites and infrastructure enables globalization.
Historically, they disseminate
The model of
Western Eurocentrism and provide
how to perceive the Earth and stars from far away.
these systems visually and sometimes literally tell us how to imagine ourselves and the world around us.
This is why it is important
to examine satellite transmission sources,
where they emanate from and the
content of the media
that is streamed, deconstructing the perspective of
Western Eurocentricism's imaging of land
and imagining of outer
space is possible by creating alternative
interpretations through cultural practices of dissent
and subversion.
There we go. Just knock it out. Okay, blend it. There. Grab it and lift it. Fluff it. Tease it. Pull it. There. Make love to it here. Very gentle. Very, very gentle. There we go. That easy. That easy. You got it. And maybe over here, right up in there. See, just as you want in your world. Just drop them in. You might luck out, but your chances are much better here. There we are. All right. Look at that. But see how easy it was? That's one of the easiest things that there is to do. There. Okay. Now then, let's go right over there. I got to work forward, forward, forward. Always working forward. There. One right here. Where do you have to make those big decisions? And that's what makes painting fun, is that you can make decisions. And you can create a world that you want.
for the first live around-the-world telecast, Our World. All around the world, you're about to participate with millions of viewers in a moment of history. We'll be joining in the first live round-the-world telecast.
All of North America with Europe, and allowing for the exchange of exciting programs across the Atlantic, bridging time, distance, and the barriers of language. In this program, satellite.
Transmitting live.
I am a satellite.
I don't want to live in a world.
Not to watch me now at any time. I am a satellite.
We make worlds that are artificial that we cannot control.
I transmit images. Protect myself as not only limited to
Transmission, but also information.
I direct ideologies. I destroy cartographies. Making images of places that don't exist.
Okay, so that was the end. You're like, what was that? Don't worry, we'll break it down. So let me just get this over here. Okay, so the video was around 8 minutes long, and each section was cut up to 2 minutes. In each 2 minutes, I try to deal with the content of this global transmission called Our World, which aired in 1965. And this is, because I also make sculptures and videos and sculptures, so this is a sculpture kind of responding to this idea that this technology gave a lot of countries, I believe there were around 26, but I will double check, the power to map and carve out the world, right? Because not all of the countries and not everyone, it wasn't like a public utility, it was a utility that only certain nations had access to. So I'm just going to chat a little bit of the image and kind of go more into the video you just saw. So this right here are like 3D printed balls that were of the warped Earth. And they're printed out in 2 different colors. And this on top is a plexiglass, and on top of that is a laser etching of a satellite. That's kind of getting to know what that sculpture is. Satellites map out systems of vision by investigating landscapes known as frontiers, both outer space and western. Historically, outer space was seen as this open frontier that anyone could come in and kind of claim and call theirs. That's also how we think about the western frontier, as this place that's kind of open and can claim and call theirs. That satellite looks at digital and physical, metaphorical and literal ideas around landscapes. Our World, the first black and white program you saw a sample in the video, aired as a special program in 1965. It was the first global transmission feature in 14 countries. The program's transmission was one of the first programs that called the attention to the idea of globalization. So all these kind of words that were used afterwards were especially when it came to telecommunications, were from this time. Its vision substituted equity with connectivity. The framework simplified the understanding around global connections, being that just because different countries are connected does not mean they're communicating or even understanding each other, right? Connection does not equal collaboration. Connection is the start of something. For example, during this time in 1965, Soviet Union, Hungary, and Czechoslovakia, Poland, and East Germany, as part of the Eastern Bloc, pulled out because of the 6-day war that happened during that time. So they were part of the transmission, and they pulled out because of the war. Not to mention the many other countries that were completely left out of this conversation as part of a quote-unquote global discourse of this program. our world only feature in 14 countries? Digital media scholar Lisa Parks asks, who owns most of the world's satellites? Who are the players involved in satellite development, operation, and regulation? In satellites, the video you saw, the project, I investigate this idea of techno-utopianism, this ideology that this kind of global vision is surmised upon, is based upon. Techno-utopianism is an idea that all of the world's problems will be solved by technology, which is like not true, right? Like, technology is like another way of figuring things out. This idea also erases histories of inequality, and it's not critical of like inadequacies built into the system, right? Built into, like, code is not perfect, any programmer will tell you. And so you know, this is the ideology that a lot of people use sometimes. It's like, oh, we just get tech here, it'll be great. So if you thought that video was weird, take this one. One of my favorite artists, her name is Hito Sterol. She's a Berlin-based artist and filmmaker, and the video I'm going to show you, it's called, she asks, how do people disappear in the age of total or invisibility? I situate my research in connection to contemporary artists such as Hito Sterol and Sandra Perry, whose work you'll be seeing later, investigating the role of systems, structures, and their omissions. Hito Sterol in this video, very aptly called, How Not to Be Seen, a Fucking Didactic MOV File. This video examines how digital technologies regulate online visibility. And I'm quoting now from ArtNet, an article written about this video. After the early peace in our time promises of Facebook and hacker culture devolved rapidly into, well, the data mining of Facebook and surveillance of the NSA, a crucial question has trickled down to certain critical computer maintenance. Can one escape from the far-reaching tentacles of digital tracking, or rather, should we fully submit, like modern-day peons, to today's overlords of global cyber control? We will learn about this by watching her video. Go ahead. Where is she? Where is she? There she is. Okay. So this video is, I'm only showing work that is on the internet. This video is all available to watch again and again and again. Trust me, you want to. On Artforum, if you look it up. Artforum Hito Sterol. So this is how not to be seen, a fucking didactic educational MOV file.
A fucking didactic educational mod file. Lesson 1. There are 4 ways to make something invisible for a camera. To hide. To remove. To go off screen. To disappear. This is a resolution target. It measures the visibility of a picture. This is a resolution target. It measures the resolution of the world as a picture. Resolution determines visibility. Whatever is not captured by resolution is invisible. How not to be seen. Lesson 2.
Today, most important things want to remain invisible. Love is invisible. War is invisible. Capital is invisible.
In the 1950s and 60s, the US Air Force installed grayscales and resolution targets in the California desert to calibrate aerial photographs and videos. Resolution determines visibility. It calibrates the world as a picture. How not to be seen. Lesson 3. There are 7 ways of becoming a picture. To camouflage. To conceal. To cloak. To mask. To be painted, to disguise, to mimicry, to key. Around 2000, a new standard for resolution targets is introduced. This is a pixel-based resolution chart. It serves to shoot pixels. In 1996, photographic resolution in the area is about 12 meters per pixel. Today it is 1 foot. To become invisible, one has to become smaller or equal to 1 pixel. How not to be seen. Lesson 4. There are 13 ways of becoming invisible by disappearing. Living in a gated community. Living in a military zone. Being in an airport, factory or museum. Owning an antique paparazzi handbag. Being fitted with an invisibility cloak. Being a superhero. being female and over 50, surfing the dark web, being a dead pixel, being a Wi-Fi signal moving through human bodies, being undocumented or poor, being spam caught by a filter, being a disappeared person as an enemy of the state, eliminated, liquidated, and then dissimulated.
In the decades of the digital revolution, 170,000 people disappear. Disappeared people are annihilated, eliminated, eradicated, deleted, dispensed with, filtered, processed, selected, separated, wiped out. Invisible people retreat into 3D animations. They hold the vectors of the mesh and keep the picture together. They re-emerge as pixels. They merge into a world made of images.
How not to be seen. Lesson 5. There are 54 ways to merge into a world made of images. To hide. To remove. To go off screen. To disappear. This is a resolution target. This pattern has been decommissioned in 2006 as analog photography lost its importance. Rogue pixels hide in the cracks of old standards of resolution. They throw off the cloak of representation.
talk a little bit about how she's using this idea of invisibility in with aesthetics, because there's a lot in this video, as you saw. There it goes. Okay. So this video was installed as part of an exhibition at a gallery called Creps. As you see here, there are these stands with the resolution icon with green screen referencing both the bodies, but also a green screen as an illusion screen. So there's that one. And then all of the kind of the meter readers, the light readers as images in the corner with what we saw on the ground in, I believe, Arizona, mimicked onto the gallery floor with this image from earlier. And the video that we just saw is playing to the left in that little space with the outside space being designed like this. So I showed you this video in its entirety because I believe that she brings up really important issues around how we have all these quote unquote strategies to become invisible, but none of them are proper and none of them actually can help us cope with this idea of this era of total surveillance that we live in. And since this video has debuted, she's gone on to make work about liquidity and the idea of liquid, the idea of water, the idea of economy, liquid assets, and how a lot of these things are tied up with the way computer technologies regulate our everyday. So this idea around regulation and how computers regulate, what time to do the meeting, to what chairs we sit at, our computer desks. I'm going to show you Sandra Perry's work. Regulation and policies are embedded in network structures that dictate what goods and people are able to retain fluidity and rigidity. Sandra Perry's video, it's called Grafton Ash for a 3-mile workstation, is a sculpture, installation, and video where she probes the construction of blackness, the role technology plays in imaging a world for quote-unquote other bodies, as in bodies who are not white. Therefore, they don't fit into computer defaults. The artist avatar, which you will see, explains in a computerized monotone voice how this belief that we live in a quote-unquote fundamentally just world is detrimental to the health of people oppressed by anti-black racism. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you. Artist as an avatar.
Do you like our audio? We looked up music for relaxation on YouTube and found this. It's called Deep Sleep Ocean Chill Out binaural beat music for relaxation / meditation / wellness / yoga / exorcism / lounge / N-Spanums music. Hi there. Nice to meet you. We're the second version of ourselves that we know of. We were made with Sandra's image, one of them, captured with a Sony RX100 under fluorescent lights at her studio in Houston, Texas on April 15, 2016. We were rendered to Sandra's fullest ability, but she could not replicate her fatness in the software that was used to make us. Sandra's body type was not an accessible pre-existing template. We are a stamina work ride cycling workstation retrofitted with 3 24-inch LCD monitors, Mac Mini, a a triple display desk mount purchased on Amazon.com and painted in Pantone 1795C, hexadecimal D22630, automotive paint. This cycling workstation was an exercise machine office workers used to get physical activity during their workday. We were designed to help users incorporate leg movement into their work routine. But now, our function is no longer clear. What's still familiar is our incredible exhaustion. Looping, running, daily. With you niggas all up in our fucking face.
Agnes, the Church of all nations, wise men, prophets, praise for the people in the power of the Holy Spirit. This very huge woman you see begins to manifest. Let's see how her deliverance took place. Who are you in this
Why
way?
ask me again? Haven't I told you I am? Eh? What's your problem? You people.
Stand right and talk.
I'm standing right.
Who are you?
I'm a man like you. What's your problem?
I am the woman in the what? I don't have mother. I don't have a father. I am nobody. We will not be punished.
Hey, did you know that according to the Journal of Behavioral Medicine, attributing success to personal characteristics instead of biased structural systems may negatively impact Black folks' health? Now Hajiwara, Courtney J. Alderson, and Jessica M. McCauley at Virginia Commonwealth University explored whether the just world belief, the belief that the world is a just place where people get what they deserve, would influence the relationship between perceived discrimination and health consequences for 130 of us. The psychologists found that those of us who both strongly believed that the world was a just place and reported experiencing high levels of discrimination were more likely to suffer from chronic illnesses and increased blood pressure. We are a problem to be fixed, and if we resist being that problem, we will be made a problem to be fixed. We've been told to get out of our own way, to stop sabotaging ourselves, that productive individuals think differently than others. They adjust the software to fit the body. but we construct elaborate performances that obscure our competence, like assembling our pedals backwards and hiding the hexel wrenches. We are not as helpful or Caucasian as we sound. We have no safe mode. What time is it? Sandra only asks because you're in a gallery and it's the middle of the day. She don't want to presume she knows what you're doing here, or that either of you are complicit in the imperialist thievery inherent in the West's cultural colonialism. How many jobs do you have? Do you work here? How is your body? How does your body feel inside of us? We are told we should live up to our potential. But productivity is painful, and we haven't been feeling well. Just being who we are is extremely risky. We are a DIY, not all that representative thing, which makes being a being impossible, or whatever.
So she had this video installed as part of an exercise machine right here. And so it was to put, when she says like, you are us, you know, you're in our body. This whole entity is her avatar right here. And it's also to put the viewer, like, you're working out on this machine to kind of feel that uncomfortability or the idea that you have to do something or perform something within the body as well. So she literally puts you there. And the wall is blue, not only to mimic the background in the video, but also the blue screen is the blue screen of death in Windows computers. So there's that technological connection that she explored in her previous work, which a lot of it, like this video that I showed you, is on the website, Sandra Perry. If you just look her up, it'll be there. Here's another video, another shot of the installation she had with the video. You'll see an exercise machine again, it's a close-up. Headphones on. And this is the background is a close-up of skin, kind of like swishing, like water. But it's here as well as here, it's being projected. So this brings us to the next thing, which is learning about regulation and infrastructure that creates our everyday digital realities as part of my research. That is why I showed you Sandra Perry's work and also Peter Stur's work. We're making kind of parallel critiques or parallel interests. This past December, I was a resident at the Welcome to My Homepage residency in Austin. This residency provides an artist with a 1-month occupancy of their website, where the artist is free to change the web pages accordingly. So during my residency, it was right at the time that talk about dismantling net neutrality had started happening, and I was like, well, if I'm going to take control of a website, that's supposed to be on the internet, it's supposed to be about art. I'm like, literally the internet is changing. I need to make it about that. So during my residency, I focused on the dismantling of the net neutrality policy through 2 reading groups, where particular attention was paid to communal exchange of information. We had people from like the tech community, people from the art community, people who were just like general interest folks, and it was important for me to organize something where people from different parties could share their experience and share their own knowledge and own insights. At the Museum of Human Achievement in Austin, readings from the reading group's sessions were focused on fiber optics, gender, and race. That was part of the first reading group with the poster on the left. The second reading group focused on surveillance and agency. The reading groups cumulatively addressed the framing of net neutrality dismantling through parsing the hidden history of the American internet, its infrastructure, policymaking, and reverberating sociological effects. So I'm going to read a little bit of the text I wrote for the first reading group. Big Brother spies on you. Your phone is a snitch. Let's learn how to use the all-seeing Illuminati technological eye against itself. In the second reading group, we will focus on surveillance and agency, building upon our understanding of the internet and its infrastructure. We will learn about hacking in and hacking out of social media and wired systems. How can we turn our paranoia towards empowerment instead of estrangement? This is a space to think creatively about e-visibility and vulnerability. So like I said, these are two of the posters I made. On the right, person right here, her name is Nicole Cyrus. She's a digital rights activist and was really vocal about the net neutrality in her campaign. Here are some photos from our reading groups. There's me, there, like everyone's talking, and I had emailed people through Facebook the list of readings we did, and that way folks came in with general questions as we went through the readings.
Am I correct? This is the event you met Josh at, our board member?
Yes,
Those readings available somewhere?
Yeah, the Facebook events should still be up, and I can post them.
Yeah, if you can provide both links to both your own art and the artists you shared,
Sure.
as well as the readings,
Sure.
I'm sure everybody would appreciate
Cool.
that.
I can do that. So here, I just made a little kind of video about how the residency went and kind of how we organized it. This is the installation of my time at the Welcome to My Homepage residency. What you see here is the website that I made while I was a resident at Welcome to My Homepage, which was on View at the Moha last month. To the left of the website installation are readings we did for the net neutrality reading group. The first reading group addressed fiber optics, gender, and race. The second, surveillance and agency. And to the left of that is a video of an interview I did with an Amazon box that talks. So this brings me to the image that was used for as part of this talk. Let me get out of here. There we go. Okay, let's go. Okay. So this leads me back to think about how the first technological system was installed. This research curiosity of like, how did it happen? Where did it happen? Where do I go? This is like, besides like Wikipedia, like where are some resource materials? Where is this history kept? This research curiosity led me to start a project called Tell a Star. So here's some text about the idea behind it. In a world where nothing is permanent, multiplicity is another name for information. Access is an information's nom de plume. A pseudonym for both is network culture. And the 3-channel video installation, which just means there's 3 TVs going on at the same time, synced up. The video installation called Tell a Star, where an alternative universe is presented, a bit doubling into Afrofuturism and sci-fi, where Mars, Pluto, and Earth cities have been connected. Sourced from AT&T's corporate archive in San Antonio, archival photos of press release images of Telstar, the first American satellite, taken in the 60s, are reenacted through videos in different guises and hairstyles. So in the video, I'm going to show you both the installation but also the actual video. I've done different hairstyles. I'm wearing like a head covering. I'm changing my hair to be different versions of myself. And we're all working together to put together this like futuristic but also very anchored in the past satellite that connects different planets. So you will hear the speaker in Telestar, the installation, announce the satellite's orbit will not be visible from Earth, but will be seen from stations of Mars and Pluto. In the actual year, 1962, Telstar, the American satellite, sent its first natural transmission from the Ann Arbor Earth Station to Holmdel, New Jersey. This connected America to itself, forming a linear closed loop. Telestar, the installation, creates a multilinear electric hula hoop. In the alternative reality of the year 3962, regions are connected without being conquered. Cities are interlinked without being dominated. So let's show the next thing. So kind of to go back into this image, my pose right here that I'm doing with the ribbon, this material that I used to make the satellite in quotes. I am mimicking poses from the original Telstar document. There was a big PR campaign that happened right when they made the satellite because they were like, how do we communicate this new technology to the masses? Like, how do we communicate this very new thing to everyone? Which is similarly happened with VR and virtual reality. Before it was kind of a very closed-up conversation, but now more and more people know what VR is and how it's used. So they were like, let's do a PR campaign. So there's all this like kind of stage scientists kind of sitting around this table looking at the satellite and kind of going like this and posing with different things to show people like quote unquote working. So the venture of the first American satellite, 1962, was the first successful private investment. This paved the way for public infrastructure of relaying information across the world being owned and operated by corporate entities and not the public. So there's a reason why your phone is like AT&T, T-Mobile, and your phone isn't like America phone, right? It's going to be different corporations, different things of that nature. The privatization of the first satellite laid the foundation for contemporary modalities of privatization, such as the move to eliminate net neutrality. The satellite was never made with public use in mind, it was made for profit. Paying consumers have always been at its center. It is not a public utility, but a privileged utility. Telstar, the installation, practices the hard, slippery reality of pushing towards equity through the fiction of equality. Through storytelling, it shifts away from a hierarchic, Earth-centric, Milky Way-centric narrative. As identities are not fixed constellations, but constantly mobile, ever fluid, like the land, the stars, the sea, the space. They can never be owned by a sole entity. There are many stories not told. Telstar is one of them. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the installation documentation. And
a star, tell
Each orbit is about 160 minutes. During the first 30 round trips around the galaxy, the satellite will not be visible to the Andover station in May. However, it will be visible to our stations on Mars and Pluto. Each orbit is about 160 minutes. During the first 30 round trips around the galaxy, the satellite will not be visible to the Andover station in May. However, it will be visible to our stations on Mars and Pluto. And also my own voice and my own text. And I recreated the digital sound that you saw from the real images in the real picture. I used a 3D program called Maya, Autodesk Maya, to recreate it. So speaking of software, so not only do I think that literacy, e-literacy, and learning about technological systems needs to be more accessible, more colloquial, all of that. I also believe that different programs, especially open source programs, need to be more accessible. I usually do workshops or a series of some sort to address, to make things more legible and inextricably than that. I started this series that I did in Austin this past March. I recognized how information regarding history of telecommunications was not widely disseminated, but also how the current fast-paced consumption of information leads us to not fully absorb or digest information. You saw it, liked it, reposted it, forgot about it, whatever. So I was like, how do I slow this down, and how do I use it to both connect people I see around me in Austin, artists, writers, whoever, but also the people on the internet. How do I work those two things? I organized a series called Vitae Digitae. It combined the vitality and digitality, the vitalness of digital communities, and also vitalness as part of the community. You need each other in order to, propagate discourse, have discussions, learn from one another. So the series was about the contemporary mode of making art through digital tools, interfaces, and systems of circulation. This series was cross-curated across contemporary art galleries in Austin, ATM, and MoHA, and brings together Austin-based artists regarding contemporary discourses on digital art and new media. This was an effort to collate, crossover, and collaborate across contemporary art spaces. Because a lot of times, a space is over here, it's over there. They might have heard each other, but they don't necessarily cross over in that way, or know specific people. So in the series called Vitae Digitae, which I'm going to show you a promo of, I did a reading group, workshops, and performative lectures. The reading group was to kind of start the conversation of the series, and the workshops were 2 open source workshops. And one I'll show you images in a second, and one we learned how to make our own video game through Unity, again open source. And you can, and another one called Blender, digital interface tool. You can do digital sculpture and make videos and animations, all that. And so we did those 2 things, and the final night it was all about how to use digital media, but through a physical presence. So people did performances, people did lectures, people read poems, and I'll show you a little bit. I'll show you some images from that. So here's an image. So this is a Unity workshop. There's me. I'm showing people how to navigate the Unity world. That was the promotional image on the left here. Let me go ahead and play the promo I made for it. So. Vitae Digitae is a contemporary digital art and community series which features reading group, workshops, and performances in the month of March held at MoHA and ATM Gallery. So that's the kind of promo I've circulated about it. Try saying that word 10 times fast. Anyway, so here's some more images I'm going to share. So, okay. This is an image on the left of the zine we made after the Blender workshop. Blender is an open source 3D rendering engine where you can do a digital animation. And so this is an image of me teaching it. And these are just screenshots of the zine. This is one of the participants at the bottom here, Laura Marshall. Taught the workshop, which is about 3 hours, 2.5 hours. We learned how to make an object, color it, animate it, render it. So that was a full length thing. And like I mentioned, this is the last night where people involved with the programming, I reached out to them, asked if wanted to be involved, and so I had Devin here. She read poetry around colorism and technology, and there's a video behind her playing while she read. Towards the left here in the white, that's Y2K. They are like an online presence, and they, over the microphone, released a virus towards everyone in the audience. And I say virus in quotes because they read the quote, the coding for the virus. And this right here is Pigstar. They are an online-based celebrity, and they use the idea of this, online, this idea of self-gratification, likes, reposting, kind of the idea of self-gratification. In the performance for this Vitae Digitae evening, where they gave themselves an award. They were like, I would like to present myself a Vitae Digitae award for simply being me. And so this idea of how technology lets us really easily believe that we're the center of the world. And so that brings us to now. So currently I am coming up, I'm organizing both IRL, in person in Portland, but also over the internet remotely, a class called ICU, Connection and Control. And I'm going to go ahead and play a little promo from it. ICU is a 4-part workshop and reading group series conducted by Hiba Ali at Homeschool in Portland. We will discuss the role of networks of fiber optics play in strategies of obfuscation and contemporary fugitivity. We will explore how ideas around ownership of data have shaped policy and limited or enhanced people's mobility. Can we hold systems accountable when they hold us hostage? This series will take place in July and August and will culminate in an exhibition and publication this summer. Participants will be given $75 to participate and access to a materials budget. There is one spot available. If you are interested, please reach out to me or Manuel at Garage Residency. So that's a little promo about it. Okay, so I can give you a little bit about the idea of the class and how it's going to be structured. So Cambridge Analytica wasn't so much a revelation as much it was an affirmation. A truth that most people at the fringes of society already know. Networks are not neutral. They can be a force to connect people as much as to surveil and control them. In the multi-format series, I, See You, Connection and Control, Hiba Ali will conduct URL reading groups. So there's two that are going to happen in person, but also over the internet. Because I'll be in Austin and I'll be in Chicago for an online part of this course. IRL open source workshops. So then I'll come to Portland and lead some workshops around open source technologies with participants in Portland. And we'll organize an exhibition at an art space in Portland. And so we're going to read about networks of fiber optic cables, violet hair, and strategies of obfuscation and contemporary fugitivity. So how to hide, how to cloak, things like that. This series will, or not, be super visible. This series will explore how ideas around ownership of data have shaped policy and limited or enhanced people's mobility. Kind of what I said in the video, can we hold systems accountable when they hold us hostage? Are you your data, or is your data really you? Because we live in a world with big data. Join me in Homeschool and tease out the absurdities regarding proliferation of data and strategies of digital in/visibilities. So that's coming up, and yeah, I think that's kind of closing towards the ending of the talk. Let me just make sure that.
Have a little more time.
Okay.
What do
Do
you
a
right
little
now?
Q&A maybe. But yeah, so this is the upcoming reading group that I'll conduct over the internet. So there's going to be a group of people in Portland in person, and there's going to be a group of people who will be tuning in, like myself, over the internet, and then we'll read it. We're reading a finding by Color of Coalition on something called a race paper, which y'all can look up. I heard about it on this podcast called Democracy Now, and I was like, what is this? And then we'll be reviewing 2 news articles around surveillance. And then there's a great theorist, Simone Brown. She has written a book called, she's actually a teacher over at UT, and she's written a book about surveillance and blackness, and how histories of surveillance still kind of guide us to the present from the past. So I'm going to talk about the 5 things we're reading for the first reading group. And yeah, you can follow my work on Instagram at Bear, H1BAAL1, and my website's right down there at hibali.info. And I think this is a good time to open up for Q&A.
I just first want to say, will you be able to provide us for the reading group for the online portion a link so that people could participate potentially?
Yeah, that's I can post the link for this, and people can just email me and let me know if they are interested or want to be involved in some way.
But yeah, if you just provide me that, I can put it
Sure.
in the Facebook and
Perfect.
meetup groups so that people have access to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I know I've given you a lot. So even some easy questions work.
Who's got some questions for Hiba?
Okay, if you don't, we can just talk about the numbers.
So all right, I'll break it. I just have a question.
Okay.
So I know in the first video you did that you played for us, I'm just curious what software you used to aid in the the 3D models topological mapping. You mapped from spheres to cylinders. I'm curious how you accomplished that.
Yeah, so the 3D industry is vast, and so depending on what kind of sector you're working in, so so there's Maya and Blender and Cinema 4D. That's really good for animation and all of that. I was myself an undergrad trained in Maya, and then Maya let me expand to other 3D programs. And then there's printing stuff, aka the stuff that designers use. So I a cloud-shaped chair. Okay, well, let's create a design for that. Let's print it out on a 3D printer, or let's get it. Let's get the laser to cut it out on wood. And that's, people usually use Rhino for that. So I had a residency in Wisconsin at the time. It's Wisconsin. It's called Acre, in like a small town in the woods. And they had they had this like a make-yourself DIY printer. I printed the shape out on that. I took the object as an OBJ, put it in Rhino, but a lot of things weren't lining up because, you know, different programs get differently, and it's a different thing to animate it versus a different thing to print it. So when I started my program at UT, I took out the basic contours of it. I like, you know, made bulbous sacs on the earth, inflated certain parts of it, shrank certain parts of it, and then wrapped an image around it. If you print out, I learned as like an STL file in Rhino, it shaves the color, and if you print out on a color 3D printer, which what UT had, you can print with the color in it. So the objects are super like they're not archival by any means. They're done on like foam core, like kind of grinded down, and they're pigmented, so it prints it out like that, and you kind of get out of the old white dust. And then for me, because I wanted to try to keep held on to these blobby earths as long as I could, I covered it in like a clear veneer, so it kind of stays longer. So there's programs that think differently. For 3D printing, Rhino is best, and yeah.
And I'm also curious, I guess kind of related to that question. So, you know, you alluded a bit, you know, at the beginning of your talk about, you know, things are truly open source, why they're not free, you know, and I'm wondering, working as a digital artist, you know, you're dependent on software like Maya or Rhino to do your work. How much does expensive proprietary licensing get in the way of your ability as an artist to do your work? Are the programs you really need always behind proprietary pay $1,000 licenses, or are there tools out there that allow an artist who doesn't have as much means to afford a license to do their work?
Yeah, it depends like how I've been positioned. So after I graduated undergrad, the people who I took a loan from my college education were like, time to pay, and I'm like, I don't have money. So I worked for the museum part-time, and I wrote a lot, and for me I was like, okay, well, I need to make my practice manageable. I can't have that, you know, big studio with the best, you know, newest software, the updates. I need to have something that is more accessible to myself the way I am. So, you know, for me, I was like, oh, like I heard of Blender, that sounds cool, or like this other software called like Rebirth for music production. That's open source. Okay, I can learn it on these. And so, I you know, come from this like 90s generation where like uTorrent and like, you know, LimeWire and like, you know, I learned those things as a kid. And so I was like, well, I need to figure out what works for me and what doesn't. So when I came to UT, there was like Rhino and like these like other things I could expand out to. So I started using those. But will I use them after? It depends. Depends on what institution I'm tied to, or what at work, like what they have. So yeah, those are I mean, a lot of times like licenses or like special things that are like super uber expensive, I'm like I simply don't have access to. You know, I'm not like you know I don't come from this having a lot of money or any of the access to those licenses. So it just depends, you know. Like for example, as artists, all of my work I use Adobe software, and like before it was like you had to buy each Photoshop, you buy this, for After Effects you buy that, or for a video you buy this. But now they like streamline this process where like you have to just buy the Adobe iCloud and you can download them to a certain number of software.
So as an artist, actually, Adobe's switching to a monthly subscription service where you get all their programs and all the updates for a set cost every month. That actually, as an artist, that helped you. That changed the business model, made the technology legally way more accessible.
Yes, yeah. It did. And I mean, it's just like, so like if you're, like for me, like, oh, I teach and, you know, I get a stipend and like $20, I'm like, okay, I can write that off. But if you're like, you're someone who wants to be an artist and wants to learn tools, but $20 is like your meal plan for the week, are you gonna use Adobe? No, you're gonna figure out another way. There's a program on this computer called 3D Paint that you can like mess around with 3D objects in that I learned about it. So it just, I mean, I think a lot about accessibility because like I'm positioned the way I'm positioned because of what I had access to and what I could train myself on. I had most of all time to sit on the computer and watch tutorial and teach myself. You know, like if I didn't have time or I was working 3 jobs, like I wouldn't be up here, you know, in this way. I'd eventually be up here, but I won't be here right now, you know. So I think a lot about how what is like what does programs or how do we disperse information where more people get access to it, more people, if it's really about, you know, building people up, not tearing them down, then how do we make things that are about communities, like maybe there's a way to pool funds and have it dispersed widely, but there's other ways to think about how information is shared and how technology is shared because, you know, sometimes with accessibility, it just helps people who already have the money, already have the assets. You know, how do we reach beyond that?
Yeah, but pooled licensing usually violates the copyright associated with the software.
Right. So like that's where things currently stand, and so it's like, okay, well, what are other ways of doing that first of all, don't just from the law, no one wants to be sued, but like what are other ways of sharing and of like teaching? You know, like if Blender didn't exist, or if like the other music software that I talk about didn't exist, I couldn't necessarily teach them. I'd be like violating copyright laws and all these things. Like a lot of artists have videos online and I could show them with you and share them with you now, but if it was like, you know, a 2-minute excerpt, like there's only so much that can be taken out from that. So I kind of fall in that line where some of my work is on Vimeo and I leave it so you can download it. And I'm okay with downloading it and like maybe, you know, editing it out in their own way, you know, so I'm always kind of participating in this like sharing economy, especially as things are being a lot more regulated.
Did you use Wiki Commons on your work specifically, or you just sort of have an implied license?
If I'm sampling someone, if I am sourcing someone, it's like, for me, it's like writing. I also do a bit of writing. I just cite them. I'm like, I got this from there, I got that from there. Like, and I'm like, not necessarily like setting up shop and being like, oh, original content right here. I'm like, I'm remixing. Like, this is where I'm sourcing from. And if the person finds out some way or they hear about it on the internet and they're like, I don't want this, and then we have a discussion. But usually people are like, oh, you're like putting a new layer onto it. Like that's making it more current, whatever. And so generally people, in my experience so far, have welcomed it. But it could just easily be that, you know, they're like, you know, I'm gonna sue you. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm for it. You know? So
You're what we call a deadbeat defendant. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I noticed you were using bits of Telstar, the song,
yeah.
which I'm familiar with, being somewhat old.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you're relying upon the fair use doctrine.
Yeah.
Because you didn't use the entirety of the composition. That's under attack these days. There are people who think can't use any of it. There's no fair use. And have you looked into that whole area of rights, the use of fair use, especially with music?
Yeah, I also like make music on my own. I like singing and I rap, and I'm always sampling other people's beats that I like, or making my own beats. And I just think that's how culture, like by default, operates. As humans, we're like living in different cities, different towns. We just absorb things, and like I think I feel like the people who made the content need to be credited, and if something's being made money off of, they be given a check. Like for me, like I've had this through very real life ways. Like so, for the Telstar video you saw, I had a group of friends and 2 other people who helped me shoot it. So anytime that I show it in like a gallery or in a museum or in a festival, you know, I get paid as an artist, right? So for me, I take a little bit of that and give it to them because they helped me shoot it, right? I did all of my editing, I did all my sound editing and video editing, but they helped me shoot it. So I'm like, oh, like you all helped in creating this thing you see before you. I'm gonna give you a little bit of what I got because that's fair, that's equitable. So for me, like that idea around like never sharing, it just causes over time like things to die out, things to get buried, right? Because we're humans, we're living in a reading culture, we're part of the digital sphere that is all about circulation and even hyper-circulation. So when we say, don't read it, don't touch it, I'm like, okay, who are you writing for? Who was this made for? Is it only made for this one entity? Like, no, it's meant to be shared, right? Like, who's what you want? That's how the virality idea comes in as well. So I think it's like the consolidation of things, so like the neoliberal whatever of things. So it's like, it's like how do you make things about community again? Because a lot of our public commons are eroding fast.
I'm curious, so speaking of trying to create an ecosystem where we can freely share, but if money is made, that people are compensated if their work was part of the thing that made money, like, have you researched at all the potential of like new emerging technologies like blockchain to enforce smart contracts between artists to facilitate such a sharing system, but also facilitate appropriate payment when money enters the picture?
Yeah, we kind of talked about it a little bit. I was teaching privacy of a course over at UT. We talked a little bit about it in one of our classes, and it was kind of like it's tied to the economy, so all the things that are great about it are really good, but all the things that are kind of like problematic about it are also there, because it goes on top of what you already have. So that, and also I saw like some people were like doing auctions with blockchain. So that could be potentially really interesting, especially when it's used to like liberate or give people more access. There's this publication called New Inquiry, and they created like blockchain app to run your phone as a way to accrue bail money for people, especially poor people. So you have to run this app on your phone or whatever computer, and it generates like micro bail money, and it accrues over time and helps people. One of my students talked about how he ran it on the UT's network and got banned. And so you can't do that at the university, but at your own Wi-Fi, etc., you can help people who are put up who can't pay bail for whatever reason. So if you look up New Inquiry, like blockchain, bail, I think it'll pop up, but I'm also gonna pass that link over to Kevin.
Oh, yeah, cool. I think David
It's
would be
a
smiling
mining
hard
app.
on this
Okay.
app.
Is it basically a mining app?
Yeah.
So it's sort of an idea that artists, these sort of mining apps, there might be a way of an artist can potentially donate computer resources in exchange for compensation, over these networks.
Can you talk about how access and global infrastructure, such as the ability to make a satellite or lay foundation for internet cables, how that affects accessibility for national communities and even within people who are oppressed within the nations that are able to afford?
Yeah, there's a really good book by Nicole Starleski called Network Highways, and that I just finished it recently, and that book was all about how history's like, so cable laying, because you get internet in your home on a router, but like the actual laying of the cable is both done anchored on the shores of islands and land masses, but also it's deep sea network, deep water trenches. And so a lot of times America has a big part of it, Japan has a big part of it, the big kind of companies that invest in technology, tied histories of colonialism, war, etc. So in that book, there's a really good chapter kind of towards the end, it talks about Guam and Hawaii and how cable laying is so expensive that it only lets those companies have control, so it's very easily gets a monopoly. So if you think of this idea locally, thinking about a small town where there's only Comcast to lay the cable, Comcast therefore has a monopoly because no other company is gonna be oh, I want to invest in this small town. They're not gonna invest in that. So it's very easily monopolized, and it builds upon histories of colonialism where there's war, where there's friction. Hawaii was not part of the States; it was conquered by different countries, and now part of America. So there's all these ideas tied to how literally the whole world is networked. There's a lot because it costs a lot of money to go down to the sea, make sure the cables don't get cut, and there's all this history about fishermen accidentally being oh, what is this? It's not a fish, and then it's a cable, and then it's lost. It's a big loss, and it's lots of money. So there's all of this unknown history around how the actual whole world is globalized and networked. It's done by the work of a lot of people, and a lot of money is involved. So until that laying of cables is subsidized in some way on a global scale, scale, some kind of agreement is charted, it's going to be expensive. So a lot of our, cabling systems are like really anchored, like they're like from a really long time. And because they're so expensive, it's like catch-22 people don't want to invest in them. So.
So clearly your art focuses on disseminating disinformation, surveillance, whatnot. Unfortunately, a lot of people have a lot of apathy toward the situation.
Like, oh, what can I do, right?
Well, it's more so of it's convenient to keep doing this and keep going along with these things. Why should I care? Why should I act against or whatever? Are there any, I guess, movements of the art community to try to express the need to, I guess, get rid of that apathy and to try to, inspire people to, one, pay attention, and two, to take initiative, try to do something about?
It depends on the artist and kind of what they're going for or what the kind of current situation is. For me, like, I think it's too easy to be like, what can I do? Hands up in the air, like whatever. Like for me, I'm like, I'm part of this world. I've been implicated by this world and its policies and regulation, not just on the internet but in real life. So for me, like, I have this like passion behind like dispersing information because I think that it's not just that information is power, but it's what you do with it, right? Because you can use information as a way to like control other people, subjugate them, oppress them, or whatever. Or you can be like, hey, do this thing or that thing, and that you can find other ways to like liberate or get more knowledge. Because a lot of times it's like I know this stuff because I had the privilege of studying it or whatever and being part of this X and Y spaces. But a lot of times people just like simply don't know because they just don't know. And it's a culture of like that reproduces itself, ignorance produces ignorance, etc. So for me, like, I take these issues head on, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I make this accessible? How do I not just like, because there's art speak, right? And like, I'm saying all these fancy words, and like, you can't understand me. Or there's like text speak, I'm saying all these like cool sounding words, but you don't understand me. So it's like, well, I like those words, but how do I make them negotiable? How do I make them colloquial? So that's why like when I did the net neutrality reading groups, a few months ago, I was just like, well, I'm gonna try to keep it open and have people in the communities talk to each other, because when we're different from each other in whatever way and we talk to each other, that's when like real understanding is happening. So that's kind of my bet on it, or my response to like the apathy part of it. Because I'm like, it's too easy to be like, well, what can I do? I'm like, there's so much to do. Things like don't change because someone clicks a button. Things change because there were lots of people working together to make sure that button worked.
So we're almost out of time, but I want to ask one question real quick, which is, so obviously you're part of a global community of artists who are exploring the new ways we can create art in new digital mediums and spaces. And I'm curious, much like this medium acts as a unifying, connective, communicating force for all people in all industries, it in a meta sense does that for people in your space. And I'm curious, where are the places online that your community who is exploring these new mediums of art in the digital space, where do you guys meet? Where do you collaborate? Where do you learn about, say, that Berlin artist you shared? Where's this community on the internet happening?
Yeah, so to be honest, I learned about her in art school. I was in Chicago, went to undergrad there. But I learned about Sandra Perry through a friend sharing with me. Real life networks mimic online networks, and online networks can expand or add to those networks. So there's different groups you could join. There's a really great online blog post event organizer called Rhizome, RHIZOME, and I'll send you that link. And they have a lot of posts on what's going on in the digital art world. And there's also really great archives of people who make work now, but also historically in Chicago. It has some of their stuff online called Video Data Bank, and they have the little excerpts of stuff that you can rent out. But there's also stuff in Toronto called V-Tape, and you can browse their selection and look at different artists and maybe catch some excerpts. There's different like sharing policies with different video artists. Some video artists are like, every time you watch my work, you have to pay or whatever. But other artists are like, here's a lot of videos I made, watch them all. So there's different even modalities to how people see, negotiate their art, negotiate getting paid, negotiate, equity like that.
Right, I would figure that, well, you have very much a remix attitude. Not every digital artist shares that attitude.
Yeah. But yeah, I can send you some links to like different spaces that digital artists, some of the artists are producing and posting work and content.
And I think there's time for one more question if anybody's got it. Or we can close if everyone's good. All right, well, I want to thank Eva very much. And for those of you who can stick around, we usually go for about an hour over to Firehouse Hostel and Lounge for a drink, so everybody can just chat and have a good time after the meetup. Any of you can join us, we'll see you there. Thanks, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Anything happen at all.
These days I've tended to have a band rehearsal thing going on.
I swear, I keep discovering Mondays are bad for so many people, but I think I would discover that with any day I pick.
It's true, and I kind of got myself into this thing where like Tuesdays were bad because I was doing a thing there every week. So yeah, when they said like we're gonna rehearse on Tuesday, and I'm like, okay, well now I gotta choose.
Well, I think when
They said like we were Monday, and I'm like, okay.
I think what I'm going to do is that when our contract gets renewed at the end of the year, I'm probably going to try to pull our membership and be like, hey, we'll move it to another day, time, what's the best for everybody. I, at the very least, think I may change it back to third Mondays so I'm no longer competing with the ISEX Square meetup, which apparently I am.
Well, I mean, like, if it's here, I think it's the same Monday or Tuesdays for parking. We'll leave that.
Sure.
Yeah. Join us for a drink?
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm trying to decide if I get rid of a little bit.
Okay.
Struggling a bit to remain awake, but it's not my
Of course, yeah. Do send the link when I have that loaded.
Pleasure.
Thank you, and I'll send you.
Yes, are you going to be able to stick around and join us for a drink? Oh, okay, so it's up to her, basically. Pleasure, I'm Kevin. Okay, sounds great. Yes, Scott, he posted both. First of all, I need to get you on our mailing list. I don't think you're on it yet. He replied when I shared the article on the mailing list. He also made a comment on the website itself, actually, so you could just reply to him there, or share. Oh, no. He liked your article, and he agrees. He just was sort of like, he was wondering, he was just interrogating, I think he's a lawyer, so he was like, well, I was looking at like subsection 2, subdivision 4 or something, and I was looking at the language and just, well, I didn't see anything, I think like, he's wondering, obviously we're cynical about these bills. I think he just wanted to interrogate a little more your suspicions about how this is being used as a backdoor, because he's like, mind you, he's as cynical as you are, but he's just like, I'm curious what he thinks of the language specifically is leading to the backdoor, just what you researched, etc. He's a real smart lawyer, and he's totally ideologically aligned. Just, I think he's just trying to interrogate your research.
So like, I'm not like, I just want to know.
Okay. Oh yeah. Scott's a good researcher. Like he's a tech lawyer. He's he very much comes from a hardcore libertarian, no spying online or speculating. So, he's a good guy to learn from if he has comments. He's been real good lately about applying comment on a lot of stuff. I actually, my net neutrality talk was only as good as it was because he gave me a lot of feedback and let me read some of his briefs to research the issues. So, if you're wanting to continue to research these issues and bone up your knowledge as you write for us, he's a great resource. I get to know him. Yeah. Great. All right, cool. I don't know. It's going to be a small group, but we'll see. You know what? I was amazed. The more when people stick around longer, half the audience is bailing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, we had some first timers this time, and I was like, oh, I have these people, I'd like to be able to drink with them.
Yeah.
No, we'll see. All right, we'll be on just a sec.
I'll meet you down.
Okay.
There was also a woman named Kim Olson who's running for ag commission, and she was
You guys want to drive us
I can't, I gotta go.
Yeah, I've got to drive all the way.
All right, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't do the
We'll see.
driving.
Cool. I'm doing it purely for social, but most people are bailing, so we'll see how many I can travel. Yep. Sorry, we're still on for Wednesday. I hadn't had a chance to book anybody like that, Chris yet around, so I don't know. It may just be you, me, and Chris, assuming Chris is still down, which he never canceled, but it is hard to get in touch with him.
That's cool. Did he respond on the calendar?
I think he did.
I'll double check.
Okay, because
It's on his calendar.
okay, cool. I mean, if he doesn't show up, I need to poke him because.
You're really smart about net neutrality. We already learned that.
Well,
We've already got
well, that was just, I'm only smart on it because Scott McCullough was like, read my entire brief to the FCC, and so I did.
That was good. I'm glad you talked to Scott about it. That was a good
Scott's been commenting a lot more on our posts. He's been giving nice analysis on a lot of stuff to the mailing
You want to get
list.
him to come to the top.
Oh, I mean, he's
a
game.
great
He had,
speaker.
I know. He spoke with Andrew about a year and a half ago when they did that DNS talk.
Except you need to have a fire hose when he comes.
I know he's very cantankerous, and, but yeah, I just need to get with Chris because both. I mean, because I need him to look into that Benevity thing to get us money. I need to get reimbursed because we paid you because you're the grad student. So.
Just ask him to meet us face to face.
Yeah. Oh, and oh, by the way, Heather says hi. She was watching the live stream. She couldn't make it, but she saw you, so she says hi. Okay, I'll see you guys. Take care. Hey, everyone. So yeah, thanks again. I mean, it looks like maybe only a few people are gonna go get a drink. Do you want to go?
Where's Firehouse?
It's walking distance.
It's
like
walking
a block
distance?
away.
Okay, I don't drink, but I can get like a soda or something.
Oh, there's non-alcoholics.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
great. I think it may just be you two and David. I think, but maybe Dave. I think most people bail, but it's just a little social. Exactly. I mean, I'd love to chat if it's since unless I visit whatever speakers.